Hey guys, so I'm coming at you guys today with the deck profile that I teased in my last video about Card of Demise, Satellarknights. Now, I wanted to be able to capture my computer screen, but my program was kind of messing up, and every time I try to do a screen capture, I'm using a Bandicam, it doesn't. It says they can't find the file. So if you guys know anything about that, please leave a comment on how to fix it. But besides that, I guess I'm just gonna read you off the deck list. It's funny because like 4 days after I said something about Satellarknights in my video, CMO comes out with a video talking about Card of Demise again, and he mentions Satellarknights. So I think it's kind of funny how people just get the same general idea. So, for the small monster lineup as S-Knights have always run, you have the obligatory 3 Altair, which is basically your Wolf Bark. I know people refer to it as that, but it's your main spammer. You have Deneb, which is your Searcher. You have Unuckle. You have 3 Altair, 3 Deneb, 2 Unuckle. I know a lot of people ran 3 ever since Rota got limited, but I just find 2 is okay, because a lot of the time I would draw Unuckle and have nothing to dump, and he would just be kind of dead. So yeah, I actually run one Sirius, maybe you guys don't know about Sirius, but he's basically the Pot of Avarice one for S-Knights. Target 5 Tellarknight monsters in your graveyard, shuffle all 5 into the deck, and then you draw a card when he's summoned. He's actually not bad, and he keeps your plays going, especially if you're discarding them with Card of Demise. And then 2 Vega just to get 3 on the field and get out your Xyz monsters. 1 Rhoda, 1 Raigeki, and 2 Dark Hole. Now, I know that seems to be a lot of board removal, but I've done some testing, and you don't have a ton of monsters in this deck, so you do need some board wipes. And since you run a lot of back row, not a ton of creatures, and especially monsters that can recur themselves, you kind of want to run this, honestly. It's almost like Senju, except, well, you keep board presence, of course. But even your big Xyz monsters get great float in the grave, so it's not all that bad if you have to Dark Hole your own monster. You have the 1 Upstart, because why not? More draw power, really. And then you have 3 Card of Demise, obviously. Now, Demise has some interesting interactions with S-Knights, because in a few builds before, when S-Knights were still popular, people were playing Duality, and Duality still has the same restriction of not being able to special summon that turn. And Card of Demise does restrict you to not being able to special summon, but I run 19 traps in this build, so you don't really care about special summoning for 1 turn because you have so much protection. Yeah, so Demise, what you can do is you can set all your traps, set all the cards in your hand, maybe spam out the monsters in your hand, and then you can't spam because you can't special summon at the same time you use it, but you can draw 3, and even if you draw monsters, you don't mind having them in the graveyard, because you have Call of the Haunted and Wastes of the Dragon Souls to set up the plays again on your opponent's turn, so the restriction on special summoning isn't even there, really. So yeah, and even if you are setting up with Card of Demise, where your opponent takes no damage, like I said, you're doing most of your special summoning in your opponent's end step with a Call of the Haunted or Oasis. So yeah, it works out, trust me, it's pretty good. The only problem I saw was in grindier matchups, you tend to draw your back row too much, you don't have a ton of proactive plays, but that was before I put in the Dark Holes and things, and I was running MST at the time because there was already enough discard with Card of Demise, but I swapped out those MSTs for 2 copies of Twin Twister, because like I said, you don't exactly mind discarding your monsters, and even sometimes you have too much back row, so Twin Twister is just great. It's kind of a staple, honestly. 3 Stellar Nova Alpha, because having a solemn Judgment and being able to draw off of it is pretty nice. And I'm surprised a lot of people were surprised when it didn't get hit like last year, but Stellarknights have just kind of dropped off the radar. Then you have 3 Call of the Haunted, which is pretty standard for S-Knights, and 2 Oasis of the Dragon Souls. Now, something I noticed with a lot of decks that did play Card of Demise, like Senju and Klee, and I heard that Cosmo topped playing Card of Demise, which is pretty crazy in my opinion, but hey man, if it works. But anyway, a lot of the more stun-based decks that were running Card of Demise had a lot of continuous traps, and I was like, well, Satellarknights run continuous traps too, except they're in the form of revival cards. So it actually works out pretty nice because you might have to discard your S-Knights, but you can draw into the traps so you revive them in your opponent's turn. And so, like I said, you just bypass the no special summon clause of Card of Demise. It's just really nice to have, honestly. 3 copies of Quaking Mirror Force because you don't run a ton of monsters and you do need defense, so you have that defense in the form of Quaking Mirror Force. A lot of people were running a Storming Mirror Force, the one that bounced back to the hand, but honestly, this is so much better. You were like a Dark Destroyer, not intimidating whatsoever if it's face down, man. 3k attack, oh, you're 1800 defense. Sorry, you can just run it over with even Trevere. 3 strikes because this is a backer heavy deck and Solemn Strike is a staple. It's really nice, actually. I love drawing into Solemn Strike and then Quaking Mirror Force and I Call the Haunted. Best thing ever. I do run Rafflesia in the extra deck, so I do run some of the trap hole cards, 1 copy of Bottomless and 2 copies of Time Space. One thing I did run into slightly with the deck was life point total, because you do run Solemn Strike and having to pay for Time Space Trap Hole kind of sucks too. And not to mention, there are the unfortunate times where your Rafflesia is dead because you've just drawn into all your trap holes, but it still works out very nicely in testing. And being able to just Time Space being able to Time Space back a Cosmo ship is awesome. And then there was just 2 empty spaces in the deck, and I was really mixed up on what to put in there. Like, should I put Instant Fusion or more draw power? Like, I did have 2 dualities in there, but then I just realized, no, there's too many cards that stop your special summons. That's a problem I did run into, and I was able to keep field presence. And that's already an issue within the deck, so it was really rough on me. So I ended up putting in 2 copies of Grand Horn of Heaven, and this one negates special summons too, and it actually ends the end phase. So this sort of stops OTKs almost, because if they don't have a ton of monsters on board and then they can't special summon them to attack you, like after you stop their first special summon, then they have to go to their battle phase and their main phase too, and so you essentially get a free turn. I mean, granted your opponent gets to draw a card, but that isn't exactly an issue. I mean, it's just you get to stop a whole pendulum summon and they get to draw 1 card. It's pretty good trade-off in my opinion. For the extra deck, I run 2 Trevere. I mean, if you don't know what Trevere does, you better learn. It just bounces everything. I mean, it takes 3 level 4 Tellarknight monsters, which is good, because if it was generic, that'd be the freaking nuts. But it kind of has a restriction. It says during the turn you exceed summon this card, you can't special summon monsters except Tellarknight monsters, which that's not really an issue because, if you have 3 S-Knights to special summon, then you special summon all 3 of them and make him, because he bounces literally everything. He's a giant Grenade and a Storming Mirror Force on 1 card, and it's awesome. Not to mention, after you bounce back all the cards, you can actually make them discard 1, or you can even make your opponent discard the card that they drew off of Grand Horn of Heaven, which is really nice. I run 2 Deltaros because I feel as if Deltaros is kind of underrated, honestly. He gets you a monster from your deck. So, let's say you have an Altera in hand, and Deltaros dies. Well, you can special summon a Vega from your deck, and then get Altera out, and then get out Deneb and search and do what Satellarknights do best, He is a once per turn pop. I really do think he's a good card, not to mention he stops negations. Things like Bottomless Trap Hole and Solemn Strike, at least for the summoning of the monster, not the effect, when he has Exeast material. And I do run 1 copy of Kinstellar Diamond just in case I run into Burning Abyss or PK Fire, I guess. That rogue matchup of Infernoids, so it's really nice because it stops milling and sending things to the graveyard. Actually, It even stops Painful Choice and Pendulum.deck, which is good too. You do have to make them in your main phase too with the Tellarknight Xyz that you have, but it's not really all that bad. One Castell, one Honor Arc, one Abyss Dweller, one Rafflesia, one Diamond Dyer, the Utopia stack, number 39, C39 Utopia Ray, and then S39 Utopia the Lightning, one Rognominiad, and one Evil Swarm Ouroboros. I think that's pretty standard. Ouroboros is actually a pretty good first turn play. I do like him because he makes your opponent send one card from their hand to the graveyard. And if you can set that up, that's great. Just because, I mean, being able to make your opponent start off with one less card is good. Really, what you want to open with is probably... I might put Satellarknight Skybridge in the deck for a combo, but I'll discuss that later in the video. So yeah, it's pretty much just standard lineup. Castell for balance, Honor Arc for absorbing monsters, Abyss Dweller for any graveyard deck, Rafflesia for first turn plays. You know, if you have Vegan and Deneb in hand, that's a really good first turn. Set up Rafflesia, sit behind her. Diamond Dyer to pop stuff, Utopia stack to get over stuff, Rognominiad basically to win the game, and Ouroboros as kind of disruption. So yeah, like I said, pretty standard lineup. For the side bit, since this is a Card of Demise deck, my sideboard is all Floodgates. I know, because you can't really use the hand trap monsters like Effect Veiler and Maxi, because if you draw into them with Card of Demise, you have to discard it. So that's not effective whatsoever, and I do have seen some Card of Demise builds running things like Maxi in the side deck or even the main deck, and I don't approve of that because you have to get rid of it. So for my sideboard, I run 3 Imperial Iron Wall Cosmo, 3 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror Cosmo and PK Fire, 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance for any Pendulum decks I run into, 3 Mask of Restrict for Monarchs, and 3 Rivalry of the Warlords. That's really where I strap on my helmet if I run into a Pendulum deck, or even really any deck these days, because it even gives Cosmo some problems with having to choose between Machines and Psychics. It could be a board wipe. It could be a Torrential Tribute at the pretty much at the right time if you choose it to be. And you run all warriors. That's what your main Xyzes are, warrior type monsters. So you don't mind being restricted to one type of monster, because all you do is spam out your small Satellarknights and then get it out Trevor and bounce everything back and reset your plays. So yeah, Rivalry is definitely good. It pops up in the main board for Klee, because really all Klee summon at all is Machines. You have Senju too, because they don't really go into the extra deck. This is an extra deck kind of Card of Demise build, so it does get kind of tricky if you flip up Rivalry, because you can't summon all the Xyzes you want, but if you do get out Trevor, you can just bounce it back and restart the cycle again. Some options that I would maybe run in this deck, Duality possibly, if you just want to go for a totally stun-based build. I would maybe take out the Dark Holes if you want to put in Duality, and a Stormy Mirror Force. Satellarknight Skybridge, that'd be another good inclusion. You could replace maybe the Grand Horns or, like I said, the Dark Holes. I just wanted a lot of monster removal, honestly. Yeah, Satellarknight Skybridge sets up a lot of combos, honestly, because let's say you open Vega and Uno in hand, and the Satellarknight Skybridge, and then 2 of any other cards, probably back row, that you open with. So what you can do is you can summon Vega and then spam out Uno, and then after you dump Deneb to the graveyard with Uno, you can swap out Una for Altair, and then Altair gets Deneb, and Deneb gets to search that turn, probably for another Altair, and then you do have that first turn play set up. It's even honestly, and there are some cases where I would rather just have 3 S-Knights on the field and just go into a regular rank 4 instead of one of your big ones, because turn 1 you can set up like Rafflesia and then have Altair out on the field with maybe a Solemn Strike and a Nova Alpha in the back row, or shit, even a Card of Demise and open up with a Nova Alpha. You see what I'm saying here? Well, you couldn't use Card of Demise, but you know, it definitely works out, because you don't you could go for Ouroboros. and if you're going second, you can go for Delta Rose, pop stuff, go in from there. So yeah, that is my deck list, guys. I will try to work on being able to record my screen for next time, because I know it's probably hard to keep track of all the cards. But let me know what you think. Tell me down in the comments your opinions of it, maybe some improvements I can make to the deck, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, also, before I go, I'm going to do discussions on a couple of decks that I like, but don't necessarily play anymore, or I'm trying to revive. So, yeah, I will see you dudes in the next video. Bye.